Hello, friends and enemies, heroes and villains, welcome to Epic Realms. Today's guest is an award winning author, having written for nearly every genre there is, most notably his series, The Golden Age of the Solar Clipper. He is an alumni, a returning guest, if you will, to Epic Realms. The one and only Nathan Lowell, welcome back to Epic Realms.
Thanks a lot. It's glad to be here.
I think the last time you were on was April 2023, and I still, to this day, every time, a week or so goes by, I think about some of the things you had said on that show. And last time you were on, you mentioned something, and it was just like a one off. You were talking about something else, and you said something about being a bit of a foodie. And that stood
Yeah.
out in my mind because I too am a bit of a foodie. So I wanted to maybe talk about food a little bit because you had mentioned that and see what your thoughts are. Do you eat out a lot? Do you cook yourself a lot?
Um, no, I don't eat out very at all. I take out sometimes.
Okay.
Uh, uh, and being a foodie is a bit of a problem because I don't have any taste buds left. Uh, Radiation and chemo pretty much burned out my taste buds, and
Oh.
sometimes I can taste something and I know what it's supposed to taste like, and it tastes bad.
Oh.
It's much better if it doesn't taste at all. But sometimes it tastes bad. And so like, sourdough bread is one of the things that I used to love. I love sourdough bread.
Right.
Now, if I eat sourdough bread, it doesn't taste just sour; it tastes wrong.
Oh.
And so it's like, no, we're not going to do that. And so I do a lot of I do. I'm the household chef. I'm the guy who fixes dinner most of the nights, and uh, because my immune system is depressed and because COVID is still out there, I don't go out to
Right.
eat, which is why we do the takeout. So we bring it all in, and so I've sort of become a kind of a hermit. Uh, I go I go to the grocery store. That's my big out for the week, and I always mask up because the grocery store. I mean, woo, what a what a what a petri dish that place could
Right.
be. And, and so, even that is fraught. I try to do as few trips as possible, stock up as much as I can each time. But yeah, being food is a problem these days.
What's a thing that you like to create? What's if you have a bunch of people that are friends or family coming over, what's like something you go to say, "Hey, here's something amazing I can make."
Oh, I probably make some noodles and pasta sauce. I bake bread like every week. I baked 2 loaves of bread. I baked this morning a couple loaves of bread. Uh, but it's standard yeast bread. It's not sourdough. I tried sourdough and I couldn't make a sourdough that I could eat.
Right.
So I gave up on that. And so it's a standard yeast bread. It's just, flour, salt, water, yeast, and that's it. And I've been doing that now for, no, I think it's probably since we last talked.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of years that I've been doing that like every week. I'll do 2 loaves of bread. It got to the point where I freeze one because there's no preservatives in it.
Right.
They mold quickly. They go bad quickly, and so I freeze one. I bake two, freeze one, and I'll eat one for 4 or 5 days, and then thaw one and eat that for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that I'm most excited about is doing things like bread. I tried bagels. Bagels are fun. I love cooking bagels. Homemade bagel has nothing. The store has nothing on a homemade bagel. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Homemade bagels are great.
When when
My
you
wife
could
is
go out,
across the table here. My wife is across the room, and
oh.
I'm making her hungry by talking about food.
nom nom nom. When you could go out or when you did go out more often, what was a go-to thing
Oh,
that you would do?
Chinese or Tex-Mex.
Okay.
Chinese or Tex-Mex always. We had a really good Tex-Mex house in here. It's in Colorado. I mean, Mexican food is like everywhere.
Yeah.
Uh, but we had a really good place, and it got sold, and they have new owners, and I haven't been back, so I don't really know how it's doing. It was a cute little hole in the wall when I still had a day job. There was a little hole in the wall place. It used to be a gas station, and it was run by an old man, his wife, and their daughter. And you you order, and you're looking through this hole in the wall in this old gas station, and you know how the gas station, the buildings, they have that little narrow place in the front, and then
Right.
in the garage part is in the back.
Yeah.
And so they had all of their cooking gear and stuff back there in the bay, and you would go in and sit, and they had like 8 to 10 tables in that little narrow front
Oh
place
wow.
with a big glass window in the front. And they had like really good food. I don't know. I stopped going there when I stopped going to work every day. But that was always a fun place to go.
I
But
was born in Colorado, and my mom was a chef over there, and she learned a lot of really good Mexican techniques and a lot of good Mexican food. So that's a big part of our household because I learned all that.
yeah, I love it. I love it.
So yeah, that's awesome. So the reason I asked that, besides the fact that I too am a foodie and I really wanted to get some of your input, was did you always have that? Were you always a foodie?
Yeah, yeah. It at least for the last 40 years. Uh, Longer. One of the I have what is it? The Frugal Gourmet.
Yes.
I have a cookbook from the Frugal Gourmet, and the Frugal Gourmet was a TV chef from the late 60s. And my graduation present from high school in 1970 was a Frugal Gourmet cookbook.
Wow. Okay.
And so, yeah, 50 years, 60, well, 50, this is 25, so 55 years. Yeah, I've always loved cooking. I always liked food. I always wanted to know more about it and try new things and find find the thing that makes the difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been at it like my whole life.
How did that affect you when you ended up going into the Coast Guard? Did they have terribly good food?
They have pretty good food.
Yeah.
Coast Guard had pretty good. The Coast Guard had pretty good food.
Okay.
The Comstay Kodiak. I spent a year and a half on Kodiak Island, and their galley was amazing. It was they had it's a really good cooks. They used really good material, so they always had um, good stuff to cook with.
Okay.
And so they served. You know, I got hooked on their biscuits and gravy.
Okay.
I still would. I Yeah, I would go for one of their biscuits and gravy breakfast and some scrambled eggs on the side. And, you know, I'd load up on bacon. You know, it was like uh, for a breakfast fan. The only thing that they didn't have was the salty corned beef hash with the little cute potatoes in it. But
Oh,
other than that, I mean, it was like sure, you could go in there. I could eat breakfast all day there. Um, but of course, I couldn't because they only served it during breakfast, and then
right.
lunch was. They always had a good dinner. They always had a good lunch. They always had a good dinner. Um, and you know, because it was a round the clock, 24-hour operation, they even had watch standard chow available at midnight. So it was great. It was I lived in the barracks that had the galley in it. So I just had
Oh,
to walk down the hall, and there was food.
that's
So that was
fantastic.
good. The cutter was good. Working on the Coast Guard Cutter Active for a year, and then they had good food. They had really good food. It was one of the things that really stood out. I think being on the Coast Guard cutter, of course, informed all of the Ishmael Wong science fiction stuff.
Right.
Um, and that's where learning how the galley worked and how the people related to each other and how that all happened on the mess deck always.
Right.
Um, it really it sort of centers pretty much all of the stories in a way that everybody sits down to a table to eat. And usually they sit down with other people and things happen at that table. Anything else happens around it, but what happens at the table. And so that has sort of become a kind of theme. It happens. It's it's that way in the Wizard's Butler and
It
his
is.
attempt at food, and it's that way in the Wizard's Cat, with a lot of bonding and information and character development and story development happening while they're doing something else, like having breakfast
Right.
or having lunch or trying to figure out what wine to have with eggs. It's really colored the way that I write stories, I think.
That's actually exactly dead on to what I was thinking when I wanted to bring up food, because food shows up so primarily in a lot of your stories. People talk
Yeah.
about it. And it was when you said that I'm a bit of a foodie, it was days later that it clicked in my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's in all of his works. Like you can see it right there, plain as day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a lot of things that you've learned or moments where you're like, hey, I learned how to do this particular technique, that later you're like, I want to write that into a story with a character or hint at it or anything like that?
Oh yeah, it happens all the time, and I try to fight it. I've sooner or later, Roger Mulligan is probably going to bake bread. It's just inevitable. But yeah, tools and techniques and foods and stuff, and it's like, Chris, I talk about it on the walk, and it's like, how predictable can you be? And it's like, all right, no. I got chided for the vinaigrette. Roger makes his own salad dressing, and it's always a vinaigrette. And my editor said, "Will he ever learn to make another kind of salad dressing?" So yeah, I try not to bring too much real life in, but you have to do some of it, or it's not really authentic.
No, and and it's not you, right? Like the books,
Right.
it wouldn't be a Nathan Lowell book if you didn't have that. In my
Mm.
opinion, you wouldn't have, if you didn't have some of that day to day stuff, it wouldn't be a Nathan Lowell book.
No, that's it exactly right. Yeah.
I I always tell people, I try to explain the difference between your books and something else similar. And somebody said this to me, and I'm jumping ahead in my notes, but because we're on this topic, it was told to me that your books are kind of like cozy video games, but for books. They're all, it's a cozy sci-fi, it's a cozy fantasy, it's a cozy urban fantasy. That's what they are. And at first I was like, no, no, well, actually it kind of is. It kind of is a cozy, it's not crazy constant combat left and right and all of these things, but it's still serious, and it still has this great plot and great story, and it really still sucks you in. But yeah, it's kind of cozy. I don't know what your thoughts are on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's like this idea of cozy wasn't around when I started writing.
Right.
It wasn't there. Um, and it's sort of been adopted and morphed, and depending on where you go and what your personal definition of cozy is. Um, I always I always talked about small stories. I tell small stories. I, Ishmael Wong started out as just a mess deck attendant.
Right.
He was not a captain. He was not a person of power. He was not engaged in life and death decisions for hundreds of people at a whack. I mean, he had to make a decent cup of coffee. That was his big risk. He had to find a way to make a living. That was his big risk. And that's the risk that everybody has to face. That's the one that really matters. That's the one that everybody is dealing with. Almost nobody is dealing with, how do I keep these 100 people alive?
Right.
How do I keep these 75 people from killing each other? How do I, you know, how do I do all these great, huge, humongous, important, high stakes bullshit things? Nobody does that.
Right.
Almost nobody does that. Everybody has to make a living.
Yeah.
Everybody has to figure out how they're going to feed themselves and their family and to have a roof over their head. Okay, why can't we tell stories like that? Why can't we tell stories
Yeah.
about that? Why can't
Exactly.
we tell stories that are about people who have to do that? And why is it always a hero, somebody who has to kill somebody or beat up somebody or beat somebody, or how is that a hero?
Right.
My father once said this, and I've heard it before, but I think I heard it first from my father. The strongest man in the village isn't the one who can beat everybody up. It's the man who can get everybody to work together.
That's a great quote.
Yeah,
It's a fantastic quote.
I'm sure he borrowed it from somebody.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Probably.
I've heard it from other people since. But it's like that's sort of like the guiding principle. That's like, if you're going to write a strong character, you don't have to write a strong character who can beat people up. You write a strong character who can get people to work together.
Yeah.
And then what can that look like in terms of a storyline and a plot and a characterization, and what are the obstacles there? Those are real obstacles. Those are the kinds of obstacles I think people can relate to.
Yeah. When you're looking at a building block for a book, because there's all kinds of building blocks for what tells a good story, what develops a character,
Hmm.
what develops good side characters. Because the main character can be fully developed, but if all the side characters, the tertiary
There's the
characters,
cardboard.
are cardboard, it's not fun. Do you have a key for developing those secondary characters to make them feel unique and important, but not overshadow the main characters?
No, no, they're there. They're there. They do their thing. They are what they are. Pip was sort of the comic sidekick, uh, the the comic relief, for lack of a better term. But he was also the guide, and so because he had some weird verbal foibles that he characterized, he became a character in his own right. I'm going to have to write a book about him eventually.
Right.
Um, but the same the same thing is happening with Roger. Roger has a problem because he has no sidekick character. He's in his head all the time. Roger Mulligan is uh, always navel gazing, and that's an interesting problem for a storyteller, because if a storyteller who only tells what happens in a character's head isn't it's an interesting challenge to try to have something happen when it's all happening in your head.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so no, but I don't. It's like I write it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I rewrite it.
You mentioned last time about being a pantser,
Yeah,
and we get a lot of authors on here, and we've had both pantsers, we've had both outliners, but the balance is far heavier on the outliners part. For the people out there that are listening, for the other writers, the aspiring writers, what advice do you have to writers who aren't really good at doing the outline thing?
right, right. Just right, just right. The When I first started, um, when I didn't know when I didn't know anything, when I knew maybe less than I know now, because I still am not sure I know anything. The the model, the brains, the sort of visualization is I try to type fast enough to keep up with the movie in my head. And I try to write what happens next. I try not to write what's happening now. What happens now sets the stage for what happens next. So when you open up a story, something has happened. Before the story began, something happened. And that something is what kicks the story off. And the the planners, I'll talk about the inciting incident and the 3 or 4 act structure and all of the rest of that. And yeah, that's that's good. It's quite often more diagnostic than it is prescriptive. It's like, oh, I wrote the story. Oh, look, there's a first quarter, and then there's this long, sloggy ass middle, and then there's a last quarter, and these things happen in a particular kind of sequence. Did I plan that? No. I just tried to write what happens next and to keep up with what's going on the movie in my head. And the trick is to have something happen next so that you write it down. And when you can't think of what happens next, or if what you have just written doesn't suggest something that happens next, I need to go back and read it. Because if nothing is going to happen next, there's one of two possibilities. Either the piece I just wrote was the end, or the piece I just wrote needs to be revised.
Yeah.
Because something next has to happen, and that next thing has to happen as a result of something that happened before. Now, sometimes because of the way stories get sort of put together like a jigsaw puzzle, what happens next is not based on what just happened, but the thing that happened before that. And it couldn't happen until the thing that just happened.
Like a chain
But
reaction.
like it's a chain reaction. Yeah, like way back there, something happened. And then that's going to cause a problem down the road. But you have to get down the road to get to the problem. And
Yeah.
so the piece in the middle is the road. And how do you get from what happened to the thing? You use the road. And that's about as best as I can describe it.
Yeah.
Um, and the road doesn't have to be boring. The road is the road is all really. I mean, you're all on the road, and until you're not.
Yeah.
And so you have to sort of work through that. It's like, oh, this isn't very interesting. Well, nothing's happening here. Well, yes, something is happening there. Something is happening there. And when you take yourself out of it, when you take that sort of conscious writing, oh, I have to have something happen. I have to have this. I have to have that. It's like, no, you have to write a story. Write the story. So for those who are trying to struggle with outlining, yeah, outlining works. Outlining works for some people. Outlining works some of the time. Outlining, uh, going back and outlining after you've written to see what you've actually done. To see, wait a minute, this isn't working. Oh, no, how do I go back? Go back and look at what you've done. Maybe I can outline what you did and see if it gels. If it doesn't gel, if you can't say point, maybe there's something wrong here. Go back and rewrite a section or add a new thing or throw out a character or add in a character or something.
Yeah.
But right, if you can't outline is just first step in writing. If you can't outline, tell yourself the story, write it down, tell yourself the story. Tell yourself the story that you want to read. Tell yourself the story that you're trying to write. If you don't know what the story is, write it down. I mean, it sounds backwards. If you don't know what the story is, write it down.
Right.
If you sit there in front of the machine, you sit in front of the screen, you sit in front of the paper, write it down. Something's going on in your head, write it down. Even if it's, I don't know what's going on here, write it down. I don't know what's going on here. Click, 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 click. I want it to be this, blah, 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 blah. All right, write that all down. The first draft is you telling yourself the story. I don't know who said that, but somebody did. The first draft is you telling yourself the story. The second draft is when you try to clean it up so people can read it. So write. If you can't outline, you're not comfortable outlining. I don't like the word to use. Use that phrase. You can't outline. If you don't like outlining, if outlining doesn't work for you, write. Just write.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole point of the exercise is to write. The outline is just a sort of clearing your throat idea. So write.
Do you find yourself writing pieces maybe not necessarily in order? Like you get an idea and you're like, you write it out, and then you're like, I don't know where that fits in the story, and then later you find a place? Or do you start beginning and go from front all the way to the end?
I start in the beginning and I go to the end, and I don't even know where the end is when I start usually. When I Of the 25 novels that I have written, I think there's only one where I wrote the last line on purpose. The rest of them, I wrote the last line and realized, oh, it's the last line. The other 24, there's only, I think, one, there might be two, but there's like only one or two of those 25 novels that I knew what the ending was going to be before I wrote it.
Do you intentionally leave openings ahead of time? Like you write something, you're like, I'm just gonna leave that open and not approach that. Maybe I'll come back to it later.
Like what?
Like a story plot, like something happens somewhere and you want it to mean something. A character does something or says something or hints at something, but you don't cover it exactly right there, so you can come back to it later, or there's an item described or anything like that.
No, it's weird. It happens all the time. Something happens early in the book, early in the story, something happens. And all of a sudden it shows up like 10 pages before the end. Halfway through the book, it'll show up again. And it's like, it's like, oh yeah. And sometimes I don't even realize it's there until I go back and read it in the second draft and say, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. All right. Then Dean Wesley Smith says, you write with a writer's brain and you edit with an editor's brain. Learn all you can about the mechanics of writing, and then when you sit down to write, forget it. Because your editor can't write a story to save his life, but your writer can't edit a story either.
Right.
So it's that constant balance between the two. So the challenge really is to write the story and then edit the story. Write the story and then edit the story. Trying to edit the story while you're writing it is like, I learned this early on, man. Don't try to edit the first chapter that may not survive the second draft. You write the first chapter. Oh, I don't like that. I'm going to rewrite that. So I'll rewrite the first chapter. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about that. Oh, okay. We're going to write the first chapter again. So we do it 2 or 3 times. And the next thing you know, a month's gone by and you've got one chapter and you're not too happy with it. What do? Write it again?
Right.
No. You write the story. And when you get to the end, one of the tricks is when you get to the end, delete the first chapter and see if it's still a story. And it's shocking how often you get to the end and you delete the first chapter. And it's a much stronger book. It's a much stronger story.
Wow. That's a fantastic little key there. Just a little nugget of information for people. Just give it a try.
It's like prologues. I have problems with prologues because a lot of times prologue is just the author clearing his throat. The author, remember I said something has to happen and then the story starts? And so when the author writes the prologue, he's writing down what happened. I don't really need to know that, because if the story doesn't tell me what I need to know about that thing that happened, I don't really need to know how many people died on the field or who battled who, or what their feeling was after surviving the horrendous whatever it was.
Right.
That doesn't impact the story. So go ahead and write the prologue. That's your chapter 1. And when you get done, delete it. When you get done, delete it. And then see if the story still works. So many times I'm going through and I'm reading other people's stories, and I'm reading I read a prologue and I go, oh, this is going to this is pointless. This prologue is just like, because I know perfectly well how they happen. I see how they're put together, and I can go through and pick out the plot points that are going to show up later in the story. This is going to be important to the story later. This is going to be important to the story later. This is going to be important to the story later. I don't need to know it before I found out what the story was. And in fact, I'm a lot less interested in a story if you're so busy telling me what the story is going to be, you don't tell me the story when we begin.
Right.
So tell me the story. Tell me what's going to happen. And don't number don't number your prologue chapter one.
Because you're going to delete it.
You're going to delete it. You're going to delete it. If you do the exercise, you write the story and you write it through, then delete chapter one and see if chapter two really starts in the right place. You might have to rewrite the first line, maybe the first paragraph. But if your story doesn't pick up there, then yeah, okay, go back and look at chapter one.
Okay.
But 9 times out of 10, chapter one is not viable. I mean, the only chapter one I think that I wrote that was really viable was the very first one, Quarter Share. And that was because I knew what was going to happen. I knew what had just happened. I spent way too many years farting around with that story in my head. And so when it came time to write it down, it was like, okay, here it is. And I did have to do a little bit of planning. I had to know, for the science fiction, I had to know the economics. And for the fantasy, I had to know the orbital mechanics, which I thought was an amusing twist. But the 10th Fairport stories, I needed to know the orbital mechanics of the planet they were on. So I knew what the seasons would be like and when the holidays would be. But for the science fiction, I needed to know what the economy was. How can they justify having these people in these ships traveling these vast distances? For what purpose? Why do they do that? There has to be an economical foundation for it. And then the later books became an exploration of that economic foundation and how it came to be and all of the rest of it. Uh, but but yeah, it's funny the things you have to do in order to have the story, but almost none of it is in the prologue or the first chapter.
Yeah. When you're researching information, is that something that's fun for you when you're trying to find information for a book and you need to research it so that you get stuff accurate? Do you enjoy that
Yeah,
process?
I like that a lot. It's world building is fun. There's an axiom: if you do enough world building, you never have to write. But no, I like. It's like, okay, you want to make sure you have enough, but you also want to make sure you don't get bogged down in your world building to the point where your story is all world and no character. So it becomes an interesting challenge. It's like you think about a car. That's my model, is always think about a car. Guy's going to get in, drive a car. What does he have to know in order to drive the car? He has to know where the key. He has to know how to steer. He has to know how to accelerate, how to stop. Might need to know some rules of the road, but that has nothing to do with what's going on in the carburetor of the vehicle.
Right.
So why do I spend time talking about the engine? Unless the guy's an engine nut, unless he's a motorhead,
Right.
maybe. But so we get into science fiction. What do we need to know about science? What do we need to know about the ship? What do we need to know about the engines and the drives and the sensors and everything? Well, you don't, because you're going to get in the car and drive it. You're going to turn the key. The engines are going to push in the back. And you're going to go somewhere. And on board ship, that becomes even more diffuse because it's always the engineers back in the engine room who are dealing with the engine. And the guy who's steering is up on the bridge. And the guy on the mess deck is making dinner. He doesn't know anything about, or doesn't need to know, maybe doesn't want to know anything about where they're going or what they're doing or how the engines work, unless they stop, in which case it becomes a real problem.
Yeah.
But keeping that mindset that the person who is doing the thing in the story only needs to know so much, and to avoid trying to lard that up with all of the other cool things you found while you were doing the research. That's a real, that's my big, that's, I know it's not my biggest challenge, but it's a challenge. That's a temptation. And I see a lot of people fall into that hole where you explain it way too much. You don't need to know. The reader doesn't need to know. And the reason the reader doesn't need to know is that the character doesn't need to know. And so the character should only know, the reader should only know what the character needs to know, not everything else. In fact, not anything else.
Yeah,
And
you
that's
don't
a
need to
challenge.
explain the quantum mechanics to the guy that's,
Yeah,
you know, shooting a machine
that's
gun,
making coffee.
drinking
Yeah.
coffee. Yeah. We we mentioned earlier cozy cozy books, cozy stories, and that, and it came to me through somebody that plays cozy video games. Now, I read your blog, I listen to your podcasts, and it sounds like you've been playing some video games lately.
Yeah, I've been playing a couple.
What is your current game that you've been playing and enjoying, or a couple of them that you've been enjoying?
Uh, we're right now we're playing Enshrouded. The new water release just came out. I've been playing Enshrouded with my spousal unit, and
Okay.
we've been enjoying it more or less. Some days more, some days less. Uh, this is some challenges with the new releases and reconciling with the way it used to work versus the way it works now,
Yeah.
and changes to the landscape that have happened because it's in beta release, and so that's a challenge. And I've been sucked into Satisfactory. I like the mechanic games. I played Factorio for a very long time, and uh, that sort of building, constructing, automating, resource gathering, inventory management. I mean, it's lame, but it's that puzzle solving thing. It's like, okay, I've got these pieces that go together a particular way. How can I make this work? And so Satisfactory has been just chewing me up. I'm close to the end of the game, and I realize now that I have made so many mistakes, and there's so much I could have done better in it. And so the urge, the impetus is to, oh, I'll just start a new game.
Start over. Yeah.
Yeah, just start again. And then I realized, no, no, I'm not gonna. Well, let me get through to the end and see what it looks like at the end game. I'm in the last stages of the end game in Satisfactory right now, and so and I will get through this, walking around from place to place, filling my pockets and carrying stuff from here to there, rather than automating it and putting it all on a train and sending it off across a map. But yeah, I'll I want to get to the end and see what that looks like, and then we'll see whether or not I start a new game or whether I go back through my factories and automate everything that I knew should have been automated to begin with, and experiment with how to put those things together in a more rational way. Then I'll restart.
Then, yes.
Then I'll restart. But yeah, Enshrouded is a fun game. Enshrouded is not exactly what you call cozy.
No, it's not.
Uh,
Sometimes
it's
infuriating. It is what I say.
infuriating is exactly the word. Yeah. Uh,
Infuriating, but you can't stop. It's really hard to be like, well, I was really angry, but let's try this again.
let's try this again. Yeah. And it's always is aggravating where you're in a it's in a pre-release. It's like, have to step back and say, all right, it's pre-release. We know it's pre-release. We
Right.
know it's going to change. And almost inevitably, it seems like it's changed to become harder or in some way worse. It's like, oh yeah, this is better. But
The dog caught
why did you do this? Why did you do this? I liked this landscape the way it was. Why did you change it? I had a base there,
Right.
or I was gonna put a base there, but now it's gone, and this quest is screwed up, and the dog is constantly caught behind the table. The cat is underneath the bookcase. What are you
Right.
doing? Why are we worried about this other thing?
The people
So
aren't sleeping in their
yeah,
beds; they're just standing in doorways.
well, now I got him sleeping 2 and 3 in the bed, which is an amusing thing. I'm not exactly sure if that's some sort of commentary or
Oh, yeah,
social
maybe.
social mores or what, but I think it's just because that there's 2 beds in close proximity and they kind of get confused about where they're supposed to lay down. I don't know. At
Yeah.
least they're not sleeping under the stairs anymore.
Right. Yep.
in the stairs.
In the stairs.
In the stairs. Yeah, I
So,
always had the in the
oh yeah,
doorway or out where there's dangerous things. They're just standing there. It's like it's nighttime. Go into the bed. Go, go, go.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. No, it's fun. I like the building aspect. I like building things. My wife and I have taken over Westcott again for the second time to rebuild it. Uh, it's it's a fun place to set up a base, and you've got the buildings around, so you rebuild the buildings so that they're
Yeah.
not all tumbled down and cracked up and stuff. And then put all of your little NPCs and all of the various little buildings around, so it looks like you have a little village. And it's got the nice farm place right there. And the new one has a fishing hole just down over the hill. So
Oh, I don't think I ever did fishing in that game. That's might be something I
it,
have to.
it it's brand new. It's
Oh, well,
just
that's why then.
been
Well,
released.
now I've got to play it again. Everybody makes fun of me. They're
Now
like,
you
"Well, it's got fishing, Nick. You're gonna play it." Well, okay, it's got fishing. You're right. I'm
Yeah,
gonna go play it.
it's got fishing. You're right.
Waste 10 hours
It's
fishing.
frustrating. Shh, shh, shh.
All
Yeah,
right. This is switching back. I wanted to talk a little bit about video games because we mentioned it, and I knew you had played some games, and I knew our listeners would be interested to hear what games you're playing and get to know
yeah.
that
I
about you.
I used to play a lot of Eve Online, but I got tired of it. The aggravation of the other players. The problem with multiplayer games is that the other players are there.
Yeah, I hear they've got a new Eve game coming out that's in pre-production.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
see how that goes.
Good for them. Uh,
You're like, nope.
nope, not yet. All
Last
right, what do
time
you
you were
want to do
here,
next?
go ahead. What's that?
What do you want to do next?
I was gonna say last time you were on here with us, you were talking about doing edits and new covers that were coming out for 3 new Solar Clipper books. Of course, School Pays, Working Class, Hard Knocks. Those are all out now. They came out not too
Yep,
long after we chatted. Are
yep.
there plans for more books in your mind?
More books?
Yeah, are there plans for
Oh
more
yeah.
books after those? After that trilogy?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't say too much about it without spoiling the hell out of the last book, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the characters coming out of what was the last book? Hard Knocks. The characters coming out of Hard Knocks, um, they went off in different directions, and so following them to see how that works, to see how they evolve and adapt to the new circumstances, because things change pretty radically in those 3 books.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more depth about what the universe really is. You know, you go through life with a vision of what the world is, and then something happens, and your vision changes. And it happens at 73. It's happened to me about 10 times, I think. Uh, and so, how do people adapt to that? How do characters grow from that? How do they not grow from that? What are the problems with those kinds of things? And those are the kinds of interesting stories, the kind of small stories. They're not exactly cozy, but they're also not somebody going to war.
Right.
And so, yeah, I can see going back to those, assuming I can get out of Shackelford House.
Well, I know which one I'd prefer, but I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say. We'll probably talk about it a little
You,
bit
I,
more.
I know which one you want.
Does it become difficult when you start getting multiple trilogies in a series and multiple stories in a series? Does it get difficult to try and remember some of the stuff that happened earlier on that might be affecting what's going on and trying to reference and not screw up the canon of your worlds?
You mean like writing a book 12 years after you wrote the first one and trying to figure out whether or not what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's like total pain in the ass. Continuity is a bugaboo. Continuity, it just kills me. Just kills me. I try to do better, but you can only do so much. But yeah, it's a problem. I wrote Quarter Share in 2007, and I wrote The Wizard's Cat 2025. Luckily, I wrote The Wizard's Butler only 3 years ago instead of 12 years ago, 15 years ago. When
Right.
I was writing Hard Knocks, writing that series was the Margaret Collins books was a real challenge because I had the trilogy with Natalia and Zoya in it and their whole timeline that happened simultaneously with the first 6 Ishmael Wong books, The
Right.
Traitor's Tale. And then in the middle of that, we have the Seeker's Tales. And on top of that, there's the background spin-off Shaman's Tales
Mm-hmm.
that introduces one of the characters that appears in the second book. And having written the second book years before I wrote the Shaman Tale,
Right.
trying to reconcile what happened in that book without retconning the whole damn thing. Yeah, let's just say I've learned a few lessons along the way, and I'm gonna try to avoid those situations going forward. Yeah,
Do you
but yeah, I don't
think?
want to wait too long before I get back into space. But
Okay.
I'm probably gonna write another Wizards book.
Okay. Do you think, in comparison to an outliner or pantser, do you think that that causes a bigger or a less challenge depending on the type of writer you are?
No, I don't think that matters either way.
Okay.
Once you've done the outline, you have to write the story.
Right.
And what you've written in the story is going to have details that are not in the outline. And it's going to be those details that screw you up
Okay.
anyway. It's not going to be the main plot points aren't going to bug you. It's going to be, what year did he do this thing?
Yeah.
What planet was he on when this happened? You know, who was the character that was with him then? It was somebody with him. Who was it?
That's something that always gets me when I'm watching doing things extended universes for big, Star Wars, Dungeons and Dragons, whatever. It's like you got multiple authors writing in the same thing. It's like, how do they not contradict each other? How do they not do that? It's always something I'm fascinated about.
Yeah, they have really extensive story Bibles.
Right, for sure. Well, we brought it up a couple times. We can't wait any longer. Tell us about the Wizard's Cat. Last time you were here, you didn't have much. You just kind of knew an idea. You were like, what else does a cat? What else does a wizard not need? A cat. You
A
hadn't
cat.
even started it. It was an idea that was like for what you were gonna do, and I know it took you some time. Tell us a little bit about it. What you can.
Uh, the challenge was trying to figure out why the cat. What was the cat's function? You can't have a book with a title character like the Wizard's Butler if the butler's not going to be important to the story. It can't be the Wizard's cat if the cat isn't important to the story.
Right.
And so I kind of worked myself into a hole there because it's the Wizard's Butler series. And so I have this main character. How does this cat fit?
Right.
And what why does the cat, what would the cat be? What would that mean? How would that play out? And so I wrestled with that. I've probably written 500,000 words, trying to get 100,000 of them that go together. And finally, I've literally, the file, the file folder is take 99 for how many times I have tried to do it. I have not done it 99 times, but it was like, I'm so frustrated with this stuff. Take
Right.
99. And finally, I just sat down and wrote it. I wrote 3 different stories, 4 different stories before I wrote this one, all about the cat in different formats and different ways, different things that happened at Shackelford's house, different players in the game besides Roger and the old man. And I finally came up with the cat. And I finally came up with a cat that I liked. And I came up with a storyline that made sense and what the cat needed to be there for, that was consistent with the story that came before it. And so once I had that nailed down, then I was just sitting down and working the story through from the beginning of what's the thing that happened that started this off, and then writing what happens next. And there have been a few times when I had to stop because I couldn't figure out what happened next. And then I did manage to come up with something, and we released the book yesterday.
It's awesome. Did you ever get stuck? Like you have this one idea you really are hooked on in the 99 takes that eventually you were just like, that's where that might be a place that I'm getting hung up, and just finally scrapped that. And, or were there
Oh, I
anything from
scrapped
those
all.
drafts that you would add in to other
No,
versions?
some of the mistakes that I made in the previous iterations was trying to salvage what was in earlier drafts. It's like, oh, I can pull these 10,000 words in. Always fell. It was always a bad idea. It wasn't until I said, okay, enough. And I put it down for like 6 months. I went and played video games, whatever. And I put it down for 6 months and I didn't pick it up again. And then I sat down and I said, okay, this is a thing that has to be. I have to have a cat. I have to have a butler. I have to have Shackelford. All right. Then what? Why would the cat? Where did the cat come from? How is the cat important? And I didn't know. But that's okay, because remember the conversation we just had about what the character needs to know?
Yeah.
Mulligan didn't need to know that,
No.
where the cat came from or what the cat was for. But the cat had to appear. The cat had to do something. And so I wrote it down. The cat had to do something. What would the cat have to do? What would be interesting enough for Mulligan to notice a stray cat in the alley?
Yeah.
Or, it's like, where did he come from? What's interesting about this cat, other than, after a while it seems like the cat's stalking. And as the story develops, the cat does some other strange and wonderful things that I'm not going to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't spoil it for people.
And
But,
in the end, the cat is the hero, and the cat will probably come back in the next book. So it's not like one and done.
that's great. You even sing that little song, "The Cat Came Back," the very next book. Is that not how it goes?
The very next day, yeah.
Well, I am very excited for it. As you know, like I said, I tracked after I read The Wizard's Butler. I followed your journey on your website during what was basically a peak illness for you, and I was like, I'm going to leave him alone, but I hope and pray that more comes out and you get better, so I could just chat with you on this show. And we did, and I had a blast, and I was like, I totally having Nathan come back sometime down the road. And I reach out to you and you're like, well, hey, that's great timing, because guess what's coming out? And I was like, oh really? And here we are. It was yesterday, right? You said it came out yesterday?
dropped yesterday. I uploaded the ebook yesterday. I'm still fighting with the paperback. Formatting the paperback and getting a paperback correctly loaded into Amazon is an interesting challenge.
Yeah.
I'm really finicky about what goes up,
Right.
and so it has to be right before I put it on there. And this is all mechanics, and it's like working the text through 3 or 4 different technical processes to make the file that I need to upload that has the guts of the book in it laid out the way a book is supposed to be laid out. Ebooks are easy. Paperbacks, not so much. No, and I have to get the cover. Before I can get the cover, I have to have the innards because the number of pages and the kind of paper and the size of the cut
Right.
and the whole bit governs what the cover is going to be. And so I've got the cover artist. I sent off the specs for him today because I've got the specs finally. I sent the specs off him today. I expect to get the cover back like early next week.
Yeah.
Well, this week, at the end of this week. This is what, Monday? Yeah.
Monday. Yeah. Monday.
I wouldn't be surprised if I had the cover by the end of the week. But the question is whether or not I'm going to have the technical difficulties ironed out by then
Right. Right.
in
Well,
order to get it published.
the
audiobook
image,
is already in production.
the image that's on the link you sent me, which I shared with our live viewers, the cover on there, I love it. I love the fact that it kind of melds with the newest rendition of the Wizard's Butler cover. It kind of has the similar feel. So I
Same
love
vibe,
that.
same artist, same vibe.
I love it. Is there plans for an audiobook? Will it be the same audiobook narrator?
Yeah, the audiobook is already in production.
And
The audiobook is already.
same person?
I think it's going to be Tim Tylerson,
Okay.
whoever, same guy, whoever it is. I
Yeah.
can't. I keep messing up his name, and I'm sorry because he's a really famous narrator. And Tylerson, Tom or Tim or whatever
Yeah.
his name is.
He's
But he's
fantastic.
same guy.
Fantastic.
Same
Did a
guy.
great job.
Fantastic. He did a great job with it, and so I'm really excited to get that done. A lot's going to depend on his schedule because he's really in demand. But I sent off the manuscript, an annotated manuscript for the narrators last week before, right around the first of the month. So yeah, it would have been last week. Today's only the 8th.
Tom Taylorson, that's his name.
Tom Taylorson, yes, thank you. He's going to do it again. He's going to do book 2. He'll probably do book 3. If there's a book 4, God help me. I don't know. This it's really has taken on a life of its own. It was supposed to be a throwaway. It was supposed to be a book that I could write, just clear my head out after working in the deep dark for 2 years,
Yeah.
doing something fun, and then it turned into something else.
Is it still fun for you? Is the series, is the
Oh
Shackleford
yeah,
House still fun for you?
Shackleford House is hell of fun. I love it. It's because I think because it's newer, I don't have as many details I have to keep worrying about.
Yeah.
Speaking of the details I have to keep worrying about, which I think is one of the reasons that I did what I did at the end of the series for the Marva Collins books, was like, okay, we're gonna release these people from their cages and send them on their way. So I could tell other stories using those characters now without having to worry too much about continuity and timelines and stuff. But with Shackleford House, I didn't have any continuity. When I started writing The Wizard's Butler, there was nothing to be continuity about.
Right.
And so I could just have fun and write it. And with the cat, I won't say there was no pressure,
Right.
but because the Butler came out so well. I really liked what happened with that story. It was so much fun to write. I really wanted to have that happen again, which, totally sandbagged myself. Cut both legs off and then fed him to the meat grinder. Just
You set your own bar so high, yeah.
oh, geez. You don't ever want to be in the position to have your next book worse than your previous, than your last.
I have faith in you. I have faith.
Fingers crossed. I like it. I like the story. I really like the way that it came together. I'm really pleased with it, in part because I know of all of the things that it could have been that it isn't, that it would have been terrible. So it's not terrible. It's not. I'll say that about it. It's not terrible.
I'm looking forward to it. Some reviews have already come in on it. They're all good. So I'm looking forward to it. People can find you on your website, nathanlowell.com, right?
Yeah, it makes it hard. You want to
You're,
find out about Nathan Lowell, you go to nathanlowell.com.
and you still got your blog going on there. You're still doing the podcast where you're doing the
Yeah,
walks,
yeah,
walking. What
yeah,
I always get it
yeah.
wrong.
Talking
Talks
on
on
my
my morning
morning
walks on my morning talk, something along those lines.
Yeah, something like that.
Check that all out
COMMW.
at nathanlowell.com. And you're on Facebook, Instagram, Mastodon. You're still on all of those, kind of, sort of?
I'm on Mast. I spend most of my time on Mastodon. I haven't been on Facebook for a long time. Most people think I probably have abandoned them. Which,
Right. Mastodon at N Lowell on Mastodon.
and at and Lowell, Zirk.us.
Zirk.us. So there we go.
Zirk.us at and Lowell.
Yeah, I believe that's
The
right.
link is on my website.
It's on the
Find
website.
it.
Just click on the little M logo on the website. nathanlowell.com. Thank you, Nathan, so much for being here. We're going to get to the live stream Q&As here in a second. If anybody is in the chat and has a question for Nathan, go ahead and throw it in the chat, and we'll try and get that covered. Of course, if it's something that's spoilers, we're not going to answer those questions. So, but you can still ask. We just may not get them answered. Of course, anybody who is listening, coming up, we have a Tuesday podcast release for December 23rd, and that's going to be with RPG and board game designer Rodney Thompson. Of course, we've pre-recorded that episode already because it's over the holidays. He is known for the Lords of Waterdeep, the Saga edition of Star Wars. You don't want to miss that episode. We covered a lot of great stuff in that episode. Again, that will be December 23rd podcast release. Also coming up, Effin' Birds author Aaron Reynolds is going to be joining us. Actor and audiobook legend Gerard Doyle is going to be coming up. So make sure to rate, review, follow, subscribe, push all of those buttons. It helps us, and in turn, helps our guests. So, for Nathan Lowell, I want to thank you all for hanging out and listening to Epic Realms.